Hello. I'd like to talk to you about a relatively serious issue today, and that is the concept of activists following the law, saying that they're dedicated to peaceful change, and then being accused of heinous crimes. Let's get right into it. So, today's date, April 6, 2020, in an article entitled Iranians Support Calyx by the Washington Times and reporter Logan Lovelace, they interviewed the Director for International Policy, Foreign Transparency Initiative, Ben Freeman. So the Director of the Foreign Transparency Initiative, Center of International Policy, Ben Freeman, was interviewed by Logan Lovelace of the Washington Times on April 6, 2020 in an article entitled Iranians Support Calyx. Now, in that article, Ben Freeman, by way of Logan Lovelace, suggested that I, the president of Yes, California, had broken federal law. Specifically, they accused me of violating the Logan Act. Now, let's take a look at what the Logan Act says. Any citizen of the U.S., wherever he may be, who without authority of the U.S. government, directly or indirectly, commence or carries correspondence with a foreign government or an officer with the intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government or any office in relation to any disputes or controversies with the U.S. or to defeat measures of the U.S. So the Logan Act doesn't say you can't talk to people in other countries. What it says is that when the federal government is talking to a foreign country and they say, we want you to do X, if I as a private citizen contact that government and then say, on the specific policy of X, don't do what they are saying, do something else, then yes, that does appear to violate the Logan Act. I didn't do anything like that. What I said was that Californians don't have a culture like America, and that's a documented fact, and I provided multiple references. And then I said, hey, if we're independent, we're obviously not going to act like America. That's a concept. That's a thought. I didn't say on the specific policy, America's telling you to do this now, don't do that, or here's an optional policy. Never happened. You saw the video. So what I find interesting is that I guess the director of the Foreign Transparency Initiative at the Center of International Policy based out of Washington, D.C. doesn't know what the Logan Act means. Because I didn't violate it. But let's take another look. I mean, maybe there's something more to here. So real quick, the Logan Act has existed since the 1800s. It has been charged on two people. So in 2 centuries, only 2 people have been charged with the Logan Act. One in 1852 and one in 1803. Now, multiple people in the last couple of years have been accused of violating the Logan Act. No one brought those to case. The 2 cases that were ever brought in the entire history of America about the Logan Act, they filed charges, and then they brought it to court, and then they totally dropped the whole thing and didn't even follow through with the proceedings. So the 2 times they've tried to do this, they dropped out before the actual trial went anywhere because they knew they weren't going to get very far. How do we know that? Well, the 2006 United States House Select Committee on Ethics, 2006 U.S. Committee on Ethics says the Logan Act is most likely unconstitutional. 2019, Rudolph Giuliani, who was a lawyer for the president, was said to interact with the Ukrainian government on an investigation. He's been accused of violating the Logan Act. 2018, former Secretary of State John Kerry, who did operate as Secretary of State for the federal government, continued to talk to the Iranian government when he was not official Secretary of State and asked them to not follow the current Secretary of State's policies. 2017, Michael Flynn, a formal advisor to a confirmed presidential office winner, Donald Trump, supposedly tells the foreign government of Turkey that he can negotiate lower sanctions with them. 2016, presidential candidate Trump asked the Russian government to hack an email on a Democratic candidate. And then in 2015, the Congress of America spoke directly to the Iranian government and asked them not to agree with Obama. Now, here's the thing I want to point out. These are all high-level government officers or people who are officially representing or connected to high-level government officers, then talking to a foreign government, which would give the impression of you're acting like you're in a position of power when you're not. So I think the best one is John Kerry. John Kerry was a former Secretary of State, but then after he lost that position, he sort of still acted like Secretary of State. I've never had a high-ranking position in the California government. Certainly not at anything close to the executive level. I'm not attached to any California government politician. There's no way that I could act or seem to act or be anywhere close to being seen as an official representative of the California government. And I never said that. So, 2 cases, never tried. Also, I did not violate the text of the act. Additionally, the 5 people that they've tried to accuse of that act don't match the criteria of what I did at all. So, interesting that I have to inform a director of foreign policy about the law. Good try. But let's not stop there. Because the fact is, the internet broke recently. This week, Twitter has been talking about Calyx. Calyx got so big on Twitter that California policy magazines, Cal Matters, had to mention that Calyx was being talked about on Twitter. So, the Sacramento Bee and Washington Times wrote articles about that and largely slammed me. Sacramento Bee couldn't even admit that I was president. Washington Times did at least get my name right and the fact that I was president, which the Sacramento Bee editorial board could not do. But then the Washington Times made it seem like I broke the law by talking to Iranian people and sending a message of California culture and being opposite from American culture. I want to bring this up to point something out to activists. When you get big, when you get any success, this is what's going to happen. They're going to take your name, they're going to say you did something horrible, and they're going to suggest you broke horrible federal laws when you did it. Here's how we know that. February 14th, 2017. February 14th, 2017. I was not president. Louis Marinelli was president. Now, in an article by ABC7, Dan Noyes, Noyes, called Leader of Calyx Called into Question for Ties to Russia, CIA Director Leon Panetta, or former CIA Director Leon Panetta, accused Louis Marinelli of committing treason, or said that he basically might be damn close to committing treason. So I'm going to tell you what Leon Panetta said. February 14th, ABC7, Dan Noyes, leader of Calyx Called into Question, CIA Director Leon Panetta. The TV station /Panetta made the concept expressed that if Louis was working with the Russian government and if he was working in an attempt to weaken the country, that would be treason. So those are 2 conditional statements. They did not say they had proof of Louis working with the Russian government. It's 3 years later. There's still no evidence of that. They also said they did not have proof that Louis was consciously attempting to weaken America. It's 3 years later. They still have no evidence of that. But Leon Panetta said, hey, if those 2 things are true, that's treason. Well, the CIA director got it wrong. Yes, the former director of the CIA and ABC7 misled the public on what's the definition of treason. So let's take a look at that. Definition treason: whoever owing allegiance to the U.S. levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. CBS News on September 30th, 2019, in an article called What's Treason? CBS News, September 30th, 2019, said, well, this definition frames treason as a crime committed during war. In fact, other legal scholars said, in order for you to commit treason, America has to declare war on another country, call that basically calling them an enemy, and then you have to physically help that country in their war against America. So, America has not declared war on Iran, and it has not declared war on Russia. That means you can't call them enemies, according to this legal definition. The definition of treason does not say, hey, if you're working with a foreign government to weaken the country of America in a capacity that has nothing to do with war or conflict, or there's any sort of declaration of war or conflict, but you're just talking in a general philosophical capacity, it ain't there. So ABC 7 and the former director of the CIA misled the American public as to the law and misled the American public as to the conditions where they would make that accusation. Then we fast forward from February 14, 2017 to April 6, 2020, and the Foreign Transparency Initiative Director for the Center for International Policy based out of Washington, D.C., Ben Freeman, accuses me of the Logan Act, and he also is wrong. So, when you have CIA directors and directors of foreign policy organizations in D.C. misrepresenting the law and making it look like the president's current and former of Yes, California are breaking the law when we're doing nothing of the kind of a pattern. You do really big, expect people in high positions of authority to lie and misrepresent the law and make it seem as though you broke a federal law when you did it. Fact. Check it out. Happen. I'll provide all the citations.